The two biggest pieces of advice I've ever been given are from my dad and my stepmom. So real quick, I was raised Catholic, and then my mom and my dad got divorced, and I went to live with my dad, who was evangelical Protestant. And from there, I went from the evangelical church I went to and basically migrated myself to eventually being an extreme fundamentalist Calvinist. That was for the next 18 years of my life. And then I met my wife, and through a lot of arguing on me and kicking and screaming, so to speak, and tearing apart, those dumb Scott Hahn books and those dumb Carl Keating books, I found them to be true. And I was convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Catholic Church is the one true church. And how I met my wife and how we got married, whole different story. You'll have to listen to my podcast and find out about that. And when I came back, life went on, but I've always gone back to the two best pieces of advice I've ever gotten in my life, and that's from my dad and my stepmom, because my dad did get remarried when I was about 15 to an awesome woman named Dawn. The advice he gave me was from James chapter 1. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. I think that's amazing advice. And it goes on to say, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. The best part is, for that man must not suppose that a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways, will receive anything from the Lord. But my stepmom's she gave me a Bible verse as well that's been one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given. And that's from Proverbs 3:5-6, that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. I love these two sets of verses. I think they definitely sum up the zip drive of salvation that we live in. It's not just faith alone, and it's not works alone. It's faith working with works. With the works we were created to do before time began. And I think that's amazing. But in all the bad things that have happened in my life, I've not always counted it joy right away, but I definitely get to the point where I just accept things, sort of compartmentalize my pain I'm going through, and literally force myself to be joyous in that situation, to accept it and realize, God, where are you out here? This sucks. Life is awful right now in whatever thing I'm dealing with, but I know that you're going to deliver me from this. Whenever I think about, Job and Moses and all the stuff he went through, and Joseph being sold into slavery, and we see everything work out, but at the time, live in there in Joseph's life, he had no clue what was going to happen. He thought he was going to be tortured and killed eventually, and we see what happened, and it worked out, but I know they didn't know it at the time, but they trusted. Job trusted in God, and he was a man after God's own heart, and so was David, and so was Jacob and Isaac, and all these people that totally turned their back on God at some point, but they were still called blameless. So I think that's really comforting. In counting everything joy, we have to remember that we can ask God for anything, wisdom, anything we want, and in his will, he'll give it to us. And it may not happen right away. It might not happen in the way that we see it, but it can happen eventually, even through the pain of a loss or pain of whatever you're going through, but that he gives to all men generously and without reproach. He's never going to say, well, fine, I'll give it to you, this blessing, but I don't want to. He never does that. It's going to be given to us, but we have to ask in faith, with no doubting. But then to not be unstable in all our ways, because if we're unstable in everything and being double-minded, why should we receive anything from God, And just to trust in the Lord with all our heart in Proverbs 3:5-6, that in all the things we do in our life to acknowledge him. And if we do that forms a habit of trusting in God. Our paths will be straight, even though they're a little crooked and stuff, here and there, that path is straight. And it's a good thing to be on that correct path towards God. I'm big into fitness, lifting weights and being healthy and taking care of the temple God's given me. And our soul is the same way. We have to stretch it, and it hurts sometimes, but it grows back stronger each time. Hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I am praying for all of you who would listen to this, just for everybody that God blesses you, and that any struggles you're going through, this will give you comfort.